Good morning and welcome to the Cabinet meeting. As usual, this is broadcast live via the Council's website and will be archived so you can view it afterwards. Could everyone please remember to switch their microphones on before they speak and turn off when they finish speaking. Apologies for absence. We have apologies from Nick Rushton and Blake Payne. Item 1 minutes, pages 3 to 12. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of March 2024 are taken as read, confirmed and signed. Is that agreed? Item 2, urgent items. We have one urgent item, report of the Chief Executive concerning the date of the Council meeting in July, which we will take at the end of the agenda. Item 3, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any interest in respect of items on the agenda today? Okay, item 4, the Provisional Revenue and Capital Outturn 2023-24, pages 13 to 58. So the first report today sets out the Provisional Revenue and Capital Outturn for 2023-24 and seeks our approval for the transfer to the earmarked reserves. We have managed to balance the budget by reducing service demand and tightening financial controls and making changes to the way we operate. However, demand has still pushed Children and Family Services 12 million over budget and adult social care spending is 3 million over budget. Declan Keegan, Director of Corporate Resources, is here to present the report. Then I'll ask Lee Bracken as the Cabinet Lead Member to speak. Over to you, Declan.
Thank you. So the report sets out the Provisional Revenue and Capital Outturn for 2023-24. As you just mentioned, the revenue outturn for the year was balanced, although there were some significant variances when you look at individual services and funding lines. So turning to services initially, you can see that special education needs remains a challenge. Expenditure exceeded the grant received by almost £6 million for the year, despite there being sort of quite significant progress with the Transforming Send in Leicestershire programme. This leaves us cumulatively with a deficit of £40 million, which presents a significant risk for the council, with the statutory override due to end in less than 2 years' time. Children's social care, as has been mentioned, was the biggest challenge for the year, with the £12 million overspend, and the main cause of this was the cost of placements. And these costs have increased both due to kind of a combination of the individuals having higher care needs, but also the availability to source suitable accommodation. And the contribution to the overspend due to the rapid increase in the number of unaccompanied asylum-seeking children was also notable, with Home Office funding not covering the actual costs incurred. Adult social care overspent by £2.6 million, which is about 1% of the budget, which was a marked improvement on the position reported during the year, where due to additional focus being placed on reviewing care packages to ensure that service user needs are being met in the most effective way. The pressures mentioned above are also reflected in the associated transport costs, with expenditure £2 million above budgets, although these were offset by a range of underspends within the Environment and Transport Department. And then the final area experienced significant overspend is our trading services within corporate resources, with school food being the main area of concern, with inflation being a major problem, both sort of food and staffing costs, although the overspend again was contained within the department through spend reductions for other functions. A significant benefit was received in the year through greater income on the council's investments due to higher interest rates, and some borrowing was also repaid, which in turn generated further savings. Alongside the focused work to reduce the overspend, spend controls around recruitment, non-essential spend and procurement were introduced in December to help achieve savings. These controls will remain in place during the current financial year, with regular reviews planned to ensure they strike the right balance of administrative time and service impact versus the savings actually delivered. Whilst the revenue position significantly recovered, the pressures on the capital programme remain. There are early indications that the North and East Melton Mowbray Distributor Road project may exceed current cost estimates, but risk assessments and contractor discussions are still ongoing. There are a number of other major capital schemes still at an early stage, and inflationary and other risks such as weather continue to be a major factor for the council to manage. Given this background, the MTFS risk contingency has been allocated towards future capital costs. The report also covers the capital outturn, which was a £32 million underspend on a £139 million programme. Virtually all of this variance is delayed to expenditure on schemes and will be incurred in the current financial year. Although last year's financial performance was better than expected, the financial outlook for the County Council continues to be very difficult. There will need to be a significant focus on identifying further savings across the Council and careful prioritisation of capital expenditure. The recommendations are set out on the order paper.
Thank you, Declan. Lee?
Thank you. I'm very pleased with the overall performance, as before Christmas the position was looking very challenging, with the prospect of needing millions of pounds of reserves to balance our in-year budget. Our improved position has now enabled us to set an additional £1 million aside for priority flooding works. Our focused effort to reduce demand in adult and communities, along with tight control over spending across all services, has enabled us to balance the budget. This didn't happen by accident. It was a result of hard work and focus, and I'd like to thank all of our staff, my Cabinet colleagues and all members for their support in achieving a balanced position. We know that some underspends are only one-off, for instance vacancies, and we know that additional investment income along with our spend controls introduced in December and made after the funding announcements have also contributed to finding additional savings. As Declan has outlined, these controls will remain in place for the foreseeable future to continue supporting the MTFS. There are still challenges ahead, with a significant gap in the medium term of 33 million in 25-26 alone, and we are working on this gap constantly as an authority. We also now have an uncertainty over future government funding. Our focus must remain on reducing demand for social care services and identifying further saving opportunities across our service offerings. Finally, I'd just like to thank Declan and Simone for their hard work, knowledge and support in getting this over the line. And I'm very happy to propose the recommendations on the order, Chair.
Thank you. I think it has been a really difficult year, and like Lee said, it hasn't happened by accident that we've achieved the balanced budget. It has been really tough financial controls, and we continue on to the next year as well in exactly the same mode. So yeah, tough controls, but we're doing all we can to make sure we do balance the budget. So I'll second the motion. Lee's moved it. All in favour? Sorry, Christine, didn't see that.
Sorry, as lead member for adults and communities, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the staff for all their hard work to reduce the budget to 1.2%. I have sent an email out to all staff saying how much I appreciate the hard work that they've done. And without their hard work, I don't think we would have been able to have got down that low. Thank you very much anyway.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, moved by Lee, seconded by me. All in favour? Item 5, recycling and household waste sites, outcome of the public consultation and proposed service changes, pages 59 to 158. So the next report advises of the outcome of the 2 public consultation exercises and proposals to make savings from the Council's recycling and household waste service, and seeks our view for the final proposals. I know Mr. Orson, the local member, has been working hard on supporting local residents with the proposed closure of the Summerby site. So Anne Carruthers, Director of Environmental Transport, is here to present the report. Then I'll ask Ozzy to say a few words. Over to you, Anne.
Thank you and good morning. The County Council currently has 14 RHWS, and then late last year, from November to January this year, we consulted on the option of closing 3 of those sites: the Market Harborough site, the Shepshed site and the Summerby site, along with changing Bottisford to part-time opening hours, reducing the summer opening hours and a closure on Christmas Eve. That was to make £400,000 worth of savings under that service budget. Summary of the responses to that consultation is given in paragraphs 27 to 39. However, the main feedback was a high level of disagreement with closing the sites, particularly the Market Harborough and Shepshed sites. While many people suggested alternatives, because we did ask for that as part of the consultation, for making those savings, when we've looked at those, they're either not feasible under legislation or we've already implemented. So, there wasn't any alternatives coming forward we felt that were feasible for delivering the savings. Under the MTFS proposals for 24 to 28, the latest MTFS that's agreed, 100,000 from the Service Improvement Fund was made available towards this service, therefore reducing the requirement for the budget saving. In light of that and the feedback from the first consultation, there was a revised proposal developed of retaining the Market Harborough and Shepshed sites, but on part-time basis. And in order to make that work in the Market Harborough area, the Kipworth site would reduce opening days. That then required a second consultation. That happened over 4 weeks from February to March this year. The proposed changes to summer opening hours, the Christmas Eve closure and the Summersby closure, they remained as per the original consultation. Summary of the second consultations in paragraph 52 to 60, but in essence, in relation to the proposed part-time opening of Shepshed Market Harborough, between 40 and 50% agreed or strongly agreed with that, and a further 17 to 22% neither agreeing or disagreeing. So a much more positive response in terms of the proposals being put forward than the first consultation. So on the basis of those results and the need to deliver savings, the changes as per paragraph 61 in the cabinet report are as being recommended. These will deliver 300,000 savings if agreed by cabinet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ozzy.
Thank you. It's not that the department or the council really wants to close tips or waste sites at all, but we're in a financial predicament that is not of our making. And the government don't seem to be listening to our officers when we're asking for more money. I think we've really done the best that we actually can do to go out to consultations, and we have listened and we have moved and acted. So I'm not going to say I'm very happy with this, because I don't like seeing services reduced, but we're in the best position that we can be. And I move the recommendation.
Christine.
Thank you. I'm pleased to support the recommendation regarding the proposals of the waste and recycling sites in the county. I must thank all residents, both from Shepshed and other areas in the county, who took part in consultation. They played an important part in modifying the original plans. It means that Shepshed, which I represent, will remain open 2 days a week rather than closed permanently, together with Market Harborough, who will remain open 3 days a week. All of the 14 sites in the county will have different opening hours, and none of the sites will remain open on Christmas Eve. So I am aware that residents in Shepshed are very pleased that we're staying open for 2 days a week. Thank you very much. I'm happy to second the proposal.
Thank you. Pam?
I'd just like to say I do have great sympathy with the residents of Somerby. It's really out of Melton. People that haven't got transport will find it very difficult to dispose of their waste. I'm quite hopeful that Melton Borough Council will be able to help with some of the heavier items, although that will be at a cost to the resident. The thing I am pleased about is I have had 1 or 2 emails from people requesting that the hours are lengthened till 7 o'clock, because people who work can't always get there for 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. So I was very pleased to see that at 7 o'clock. And I do understand the reasons why we're doing what we are doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. And just to reiterate what Ozzy said there about the initial consultation, we did listen to the responses that we received, and it was probably one of the most responses that we've had for any consultation for a very long time. So we have moved, but it has obviously reduced the savings that we're going to make. But like Pam said, it is a difficult decision. No one wants to shut anything, do we? We don't want to reduce services, but the Somerby option was the only one that we could really go with for closing. So hopefully residents will understand why we've made the decisions that we have. So it's been moved by Ozzy, seconded by Christine. All agree? Thank you, Anne. Item 6, development of the local transport plan LTP4 2026 to 2040, pages 159 to 222. So this agenda item is a report setting out progress with work on the new local transport plan, the LTP4, which will cover the period from 2026 to 2040 and seeks approval for consultation to take place on the court document. Jana Walker, the Assistant Director of Environment and Transport, will present the report, and then I will ask Ozzy to speak as the Cabinet Lead Member. Over to you, Jana.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as you said, the report presents the local transport plan core document for consultation. We've taken the opportunity to develop a new local transport plan, which is the fourth, as you said, the fourth transport plan for the authority. And the purpose of that document really is to set the strategic direction for highways and transport provision over a long-term plan with shorter, medium and longer term targets. We've been working at pace on this document, particularly in the sort of context of the promise of multi-year funding settlements from central government over the areas of maintenance, public transport and local highways and transport schemes. Just in light of the announcement of the election, we have amended recommendation C around the timescale. So in paragraph 7 of the report, we'd set out some consultation timescales. Recommendation C will now, the proposal is still to consult, but to do that in appropriate in time in line with guidance. And we've just amended recommendation C to reflect that. But I think it's really important that we go forward to consultation. Residents then of residents and businesses of Leicestershire can see the priorities that we're setting out, and they'll notice that this local transport plan has a bit of a step change in it. You'll notice that our local transport plan 3, if you've read it, I'll say you notice, very much around transport links. This local transport plan really focuses on transport as an enabler of other aims that the council has, and really puts communities at the heart of that. We recognise that when we're planning transport issues, there's very much some local elements to that, whether you've got active travel, shorter distances, and you've also got the strategic elements of it. So where we work with government and national highways, for instance, on the strategic road network and network rails infrastructure as well. So the local transport plan seeks to set out how we'll manage all of that, and we'd really welcome the community's involvement in that. The report also highlights the changes on demands of the transport network in recent years, and particularly we'll mention the pandemic changing travel patterns. We don't have exactly the same core peak hour demand on the network as we used to, and there's a lot more demand for services being brought to people, perhaps working from home, than people going. And we're using those trends to plan transport and highways initiatives going forward. So, and you'll notice as well things like demand of heavy goods vehicles, large good vehicles changing over time, and particularly an issue for Leicestershire being in the centre of the country. So the report also sets out the significant challenges that we're trying to overcome by, or making contribution to overcome by the local transport plan, particularly around population growth, housing growth, making sure services are appropriate for an ageing population in Leicestershire, thinking about our environmental targets and that freight demand that we've spoken about as well. The LTP4, as we've put forward, will be developed in 3 phases. This is the first one and sets out a core document that's attached to the papers and will be the focus of the engagement and consultation. And they've really developed around the 5 key themes of LTP4, which are enabling health and wellbeing, protecting the environment, delivering economic growth, enhancing our transport networks, resilience and embracing innovation. And you'll see from there that those things are then focusing on the outcomes that we're looking for and our role in highways and transport in facilitating those. The report then sets out how we'll develop this with engagement with our partners and the communities over the life of the plan. Particularly, we've really increased our work with health colleagues and linking up on our agendas, and you'll see that through the commentary of the report as well. So other than that amended recommendation C, we would like to proceed with consultation, which obviously will report back again on an amended timeline if necessary, and the remaining recommendations are as set out in the report, Chair.
Thank you. Ozzy?
Thank you. As Jana has quite rightly said, travel habits have changed since the pandemic, with more employees working from home. Travel is now reducing on certain days of the week, but peak travel is now changed from what we used to know, and we're relying more on HGVs with internet shopping. We need to move forward with a plan that brings all the best that we can have with carbon reduction. We need to be better connected. We need better connected communities. We've received over £7 million in funding to support bus services, and we're working up plans now. We acknowledge there are greater challenges now than in the previous LTPs. More vehicles on the road, which means poor air quality, poor health in general. So we need to look after the environment and reduce our carbon footprint. Through our transport plan, we will seek to reduce carbon emissions from transport to protect our communities and the environment, and work with our partners to identify and deliver innovative transport solutions which proactively reduce carbon emissions across the county. And I recommend LTP for going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Ozzy. Peter?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, just for context, in the report I was reading, in the county, there are 2,900 roads, miles of roads in the county, as well as 2,000 miles of public rights of way, and 6 million miles of public transport routes across the entire county. So this is clearly a huge piece of infrastructure work. So, thanks to the team for all you're doing to pull this stuff together. Something that Jana said in her presentation was about the strategy was there to also enable activities to go on. There's certainly something in the report around a transport system that supports a prosperous economy and provides successful population growth is really key, particularly in Leicestershire and other counties where we've seen significant growth right across the county. We need a system that can support that growth and that can support our residents, so they're not constantly stuck in gridlock, or they can get from A to B, they can get to their dentist, they can get to their doctors, they can get around and do the things that we all want to do. So I'm happy to second the motion on the order paper.
Thanks, Peter. Louise?
Thank you. I'd just like to congratulate the staff both in environment and transport and public health for working together to bring health and well-being of our residents to the fore in this plan. Thank you.
Christine?
Yeah, can I just say that I welcome this, but I think what we've got to bear in mind when this sustainable travel part, that then the sustainable travel provider doesn't then withdraw. I think somehow we've got to make it part of a condition that sustainable travel there is going to be there. As you know, we've got an issue with Shepshed where, yes, they got planning permission for thousands of houses because there was sustainable travel, but it's now been withdrawn, so there isn't sustainable travel. So I'm not quite sure how we're going to be able to do that to make sure that the sustainable travel is there, to support the residents that move in. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think just recognise that planning for new development is a big part of having a working transport network, both the impacts that arise from development and for those residents that become residents of Leicestershire in those new developments. So we are working with the planning authorities to ensure that sustainable travel is considered and planned for. And in terms of that retention of the sustainable travel, clearly funding is a massive part of that. At the moment, we have funding for passenger transport and intervention, so that could be traditional bus, but it could be things like demand responsive minibuses as well, and we are working on a review around the area to see where we can connect up communities better with that money. Clearly long-term commitment to that money would help that cause and be a part of it, but we are picking up on that as we go through.
Do you want to come back, Louise?
Yes, sorry, am I allowed? Yeah, I was just going to say, as this public meeting, obviously, that I would encourage people to get out and use the cycle lanes that we actually put in, cycle tracks. These things cost a lot of money, and it would be really helpful and good for the health and well-being to get out and enjoy them. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jana, just the alterations to the timings of the consultation. Obviously, this is a really important document. We want as many residents and businesses, as you said, to respond to it. How will we be promoting the dates of the consultation when we actually decide them?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. So we will use our usual channels, social media. We'll re-release any media comms that we've put out, and information will be available on the website. We're just going to take advice of whether we can stick with the dates we've put out or amend them, and also just being aware of the summer holidays and things like that. We don't always tend to get as good engagement if we do it purely in the summer holidays and things like that. So we're just going to work through that, and we will make it very clear through our comms. And Mr. O'Shea has been out and about talking about the local plan already, and will be doing so again if we need to reissue the dates.
Lovely, thank you. So moved by Ozzy, seconded by Peter, all agreed? Thanks, Joanna. Okay, agenda item 7. Ibstock Community Managed Library, pages 2023 to 252. So this is a report about the Ibstock Community Managed Library. The group, which has been managing the library, notified us last year that it wasn't able to continue. In November and December, a registration of interest process took place to see if anyone else was able to take on the library, and we also undertook consultation on an alternative library provision for Ibstock. As there has been no viable proposals, I'm afraid it is now proposed to close the library and put some other arrangements in place. The council has received a petition from Mrs. Deborah Peace with a total of 129 signatures. The petition wording is attached to the order paper for this meeting, marked 7. Injet, Assistant Director for Adults and Communities, and Fran, Head of Communities and Wellbeing Service, are here to present the report. Then I'll ask Christine Radford to speak as the Cabinet lead member.
Thank you, Mrs. Taylor. So you pretty much said what I was going to say, to be honest. That's fine. So the report provides Cabinet an update on the outcome of the consultation regarding the Ibstock Community Managed Library. And as you said, following the expression of interest that we undertook as a department and the outcome of the consultation, Cabinet are asked to approve closure of Ibstock Community Managed Library. The report also details alternative provision that will be put in place for the local community. I'm going to hand over to Fran just to take Cabinet through a few of the key points.
Thanks, and good morning. And I know that you've read the paper and are familiar with the issues in the report, so I'm just going to summarise. As Indy said, it's around advising on the outcome of the registration of interest process for Ibstock Community Managed Library and the associated consultation on alternative library provision in the event the library was to close. The group that was running Ibstock Community Managed Library finished their work at the end of March 2024, and the library has been temporarily closed since then. The Council has followed the approved process that's attached as Appendix C of your report to seek a new group to run the library. This commenced in November 2023 and concluded in April 24. Temporary alternative library provision has been put in place since the library closed in March, and it's now desirable to put in place a permanent provision as soon as possible. A registration of interest was submitted as part of the process, but it's not been recommended to take this forward due to sustainability concerns. The Council's provided support to the group submitting the registration of interest, which included a meeting with interested parties to try and strengthen the proposal. This was chaired by the local member for Ibstock and Appleby and attended by lead member for Adults and Communities. We also gave additional time for the group to rework their proposal. Sadly, the financial plan still showed that the group was unable to cover its core costs, and the hard work of those individuals involved in the registration of interest is recognised and greatly appreciated. A consultation on alternative library provision took place between the 9th of November 2023 and the 22nd of December 23. Summary of that can be found in paragraphs 26 to 34 of your report, and the full results are attached as Appendix A. The alternative provision proposed is a regular mobile library stop in Ibstock, signposting to other local libraries, particularly the nearby Colville Library. This is a large local authority managed library, and also Measham Community Managed Library, and signposting to our free digital library offer. The consultation received 21 responses, mainly from users of the library, and it demonstrates that the value that the library is valued. This is also reflected in the petition that you've received and was just referenced, which was undertaken as a result of a local recent survey. In conclusion, the approved procedure in the event of possible closure of a community managed library has been followed. The registration of interest process has not identified a group in a position to take on the library, and therefore the service reluctantly seeks permission to close the Ibstock Community Managed Library and put in place the alternative library provision. Thank you.
Christine?
Yeah, reluctant, but I've got to support the recommendation to close the library in Ibstock. The staff have worked hard to keep the library open. As mentioned, we had 2 groups come forward to keep it open. One of them pulled out and the second was found not to be able to demonstrate financial sustainability. The previous group of volunteers announced in September that they would be closing because they had struggled to generate support, and despite their best efforts, felt it was no longer sustainable. I want to thank the trustees and volunteers at Ibstock for their sterling work in the past few years. They did a fantastic job. And I think there will probably be a regular 3 weekly service of the mobile library, which has already been calling, but this has been calling on a twice weekly service. But I think that we're going to be doing a mobile library. Anyway, I'm happy to recommend this.
Louise? Yes, I'll second this. I don't think there's any other option at the moment, and at least it still gives a provision to the residents in that area.
I think we're all feeling the same as you, Fran. It's really reluctant that we're having to take this decision, but with no group to run the community library, we don't really have any other option currently but to close it, and then it'll be covered by a mobile library. Christine just mentioned a 3 weekly service. Is that what's been agreed so far?
Yeah, so the way that the mobile library service works, it works on a 3 weekly rota. It used to be monthly, it's now 3 weekly, so slightly more frequent. So it will stop once every 3 weeks. At the moment, we're running it on a weekly basis as an alternative to the site, so that will change. We've been alternating the days of the week to try and generate some idea of which day of the week might be better and which time. And we will review that usage over the next sort of year and try to tweak that as far as we can within the confines of the existing mobile routes.
Thank you. So it's been moved by Christine, seconded by Louise. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 8, exception to contract procedure rules, urgent action taken by the Chief Executive in relation to the Educational Psychologist Service, pages 253 to 258. So our final report, other than our urgent item, is a report from the Director of Children and Family Services. Alison Bradley, Assistant Director of Children and Family Service, will explain the action that's been taken, and then I will move the motion.
Thank you, Chair. The report sets out the urgent actions taken by the Chief Executive to approve the exception to Council's contract procurement rules to enable the direct award of a contract for Liquid Personnel Limited for the provision of educational psychologist locums. By way of background, the SEND Code of Practice sets out a number of requirements in relation to education and healthcare plan needs assessments process, including the need to seek educational advice and information from an educational psychologist. The average number of requests coming into the authority on a monthly basis is around 100, which is in line with other local authorities. The SEND Code of Practice sets out that the whole process of an education and healthcare needs assessment and education and healthcare plan development must take no more than 20 weeks. In Leicestershire, increasing numbers of education and healthcare plan assessments are well outside this timescale, and in the main, this is due to the lack of availability of educational psychologists. The number of educational psychologists required to undertake the volume of assessments required far exceeds the number of educational psychologists employed by Leicestershire's Educational Psychology Service. Therefore, over the last 2 years, the department has needed to procure additional educational psychologists externally in order to meet the demand. In September 23, a request for a quotation process was carried out to award a 6-month contract for the provision of educational psychologists locums, and Liquid Personnel Limited were successful in being awarded. This contract ended on the 14th of May 2024 with no extension options. The direct award of a new contract to Liquid Personnel Limited will continue the provision of the services on the same terms and conditions as the original contract and will provide an additional 20 educational psychologists to undertake the 500 assessments. Alongside this, the department is undertaking a review of the service requirements, following which a procurement exercise will be undertaken in January 2025 for further ongoing provision of educational psychology services. Thank you.
Thanks, Alison. I'll move the motion on the order paper, and I think just to be clear that every single education, health and care plan has to have oversight of an educational psychologist, and that's where we're struggling. All the other work is done. We're just waiting for those comments from them, which is causing the huge delays that we have, which is not good for children. So yeah, I'm very happy to support this. We need to crack on with this. So yeah, I'm happy to move the motion. Pam.
Thank you. I was pleased to read this to to really understand, because I think that's the problem with a lot of, we don't really understand what's happened, and perhaps didn't realise, all of us, that a psychologist was needed, and there are only a limited number of those posts. I'm very pleased to second this application, because this means once we've agreed this plan, the requests can be held in a more timely manner, which will bring a lot of comfort to both young people and their families. So happy to second the motion. Thank you.
Louise, can I just ask a question? Will this bring us back in line with the national, or will it just keep us a little bit less time needed? I'm just thinking for, obviously, residents and people claim.
Thank you. The ambition is that it does both of those. So we will be working through what is currently a backlog, but also keeping on top of the incoming work coming in. In order to get to that position, there will be some time taken to say when we will get to the 20 weeks, that is part of the work.
And I think just to point out, this is a national issue, not a Leicestershire issue. It's across the whole of the country and really struggling for educational psychologists. So they're in great demand from all the other local authorities that are not hitting the timelines either. So it's even more difficult to recruit as well. So I've made the motion, Pam second. All in favour? Thank you, Alison. Item 9, items referred from Overview and Scrutiny. There are no items referred from the Overview and Scrutiny Commission. So item 10, the other item, which I've decided to take as urgent. So this is a variation to the date of the council meeting, supplementary papers 3 to 4. So as stated earlier, we have one urgent item, report of the Chief Exec regarding a change to the date of the council meeting in July. It's proposed that in light of the general election announcement yesterday, that the date is changed from the 3rd of July to the 10th of July. I'll move the motion on the order paper. Lee?
Yeah, happy to second.
Any questions from anyone? Did you want to say anything?
Thank you, Chair. Just to add that the change in date has been discussed in addition to the leader and yourself with the chairman of the council and the opposition group leaders.
Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. That brings the meeting to a close. Thank you for attending.